So, is Longlegs actually good? Yes. My answer is a resounding yes. Thank you guys for all the love on the first video I made about it. Link is in the description. Make sure to check that out when you get the chance if you haven't already. But there were a lot of split reactions in the comments that had me thinking a lot about my review and the movie itself. Should I have called it a masterpiece? Probably not. Is it a perfect movie? No. But I don't think it's as flawed as some people are making it out to be. Like I said in the first video, I can be a real victim of the moment. And with all the amazing marketing they have done, the excitement I had, and the experience I had in the theater, I got very caught up in the idea of Longlegs. I think a lot of people did too. But that first video was my genuine first reaction. I mean, I drove home from the theater, sat down, turned on the microphone, and just let my thoughts spew out. Which honestly, I think that made for a better video. Just like expectations, other people's opinions can cloud your judgment of certain movies, music, or any other form of art. For me, I try to not let them as much as I can, but it happens. So I didn't look at any other reviews, and I wanted to be as real as possible when it came to my review and give you my honest, pure reaction. Because I know how strong of a cultural moment this is becoming, and with so many opinions out there, I wanted to provide a genuine one to the best of my capabilities. But just a couple of hours ago, at the time I'm recording this, I went and watched it again. Yes, because I want to keep talking about it, but more because I wanted to see if I truly felt the way I did when I first saw it. Which is, I guess, technically impossible. And after a second viewing, I still think this movie is fantastic. I feel pretty much the same way. And this isn't going to be much of a review, so if you want to see what I think about everything as a whole, go check out my first video. A big critique I'm seeing of this movie is pretty simple. It was too hyped up and was a letdown. I just don't think it's a valid criticism that because it wasn't the scariest movie ever, it wasn't good at all. Now, I'm not saying that's what everyone is doing. I think some people simply don't like it. But when it comes to Longlegs, personally, I was sold on the movie just from the early pieces of marketing. I never even watched the full trailer because trailers do give a lot away a majority of the time. The short videos and posters were more than enough for me. And like I said in my first video, it made me feel really weird and compelled me to watch it. And they didn't say it was the scariest movie of the year, well, until of course it came out. It was already in the zeitgeist weeks before reviews started piling in, and initially all of it was super positive. But what movie doesn't use that in the marketing? I feel like every horror movie trailer, hell, every movie trailer I've seen will say, this is the #1 movie of the year. Critics say it's the best movie of the decade. And the movie just came out. It's used across all genres, but especially horror. They said Barbarian was the scariest movie ever, and that was not scary at all. It's just how you sell tickets. But if you think the movie is not scary or just not good, obviously you're not wrong, I just simply disagree. But to say it being overhyped ruin your experience? I mean, that's what I keep trying to get at. You can't let expectations change how you view something, even though yes, it is very hard. I honestly feel like if no one was talking about this movie and it just slowly crept into the mainstream through word of mouth, there would be a lot less negative reviews. Because in my opinion, this movie is undeniable in its artistry, its uniqueness, and how disturbing it is. Kind of like Talk to Me, which I don't think is as good, but also very disturbing and has faced similar criticism. Another main critique I've seen is that it leaned into the supernatural aspect too much, if at all. And yeah, supernatural stuff doesn't tend to scare me anymore because I don't believe in any of it, so of course there's going to be somewhat of a disconnect. But what's wrong with trying to do that genre of horror? I mean, the foundation of horror is supernatural, monster/creature focused, and a lot of the times, demonic. I think if you can make something based around those subjects genuinely scary, it's almost more effective than real-life horror sometimes. Being scared of something you don't even think is real is pretty powerful. Now, this is not a comparison of quality, I'm just using it as an example, but The Shining, which is my favorite movie of all time, has a similar balance of is this a ghost story or not? It can be looked at as supernatural, or you can view the movie as just a deteriorating mental state of a man going insane. Is the hotel really haunted? Or is he just crazy? But then the ending alludes to it being a supernatural story to some degree. And yes, the ending of Longlegs pretty much says this is supernatural, but I think the movie can still be viewed as not. Again, why I liked it so much. It doesn't change everything you just felt. I also feel that, like The Shining, this movie uses those things to be more symbolic even if the message isn't that clear. Which personally, I think there is some symbolism they're trying to get at, possibly, but I didn't really know what it was. This movie honestly feels like if Charles Manson was actually right about all the things he said, as if he actually did gain powers from or was in contact with the devil. And of course it's also like the Zodiac because of the letters and some of the beliefs that Longlegs had. But I really like that take on true crime. I mean, what if their Satanism actually had an effect on their streak of terror? If Longlegs actually manipulated the families and brought them into a cult instead of using the power of the devil, that would have been really cool too, but that also would have shown too much of him. The movie works better when he feels like this mythical creature, but it's also fair to say that that's why his reveal didn't work for some people, but we will get into that in a second. If they kept this as just a crime mystery thriller, no devil, it would just be exactly like the movies it's inspired by and compared to. It is very similar to The Silence of the Lambs, but I don't exactly need to see a remake of that. One of my friends who watched it said, "I wish this was more like the movie Prisoner." And my response was, you can't recreate Prisoner, just go watch Prisoner. But then that brings the valid criticism that at times it feels like this movie doesn't know exactly what it is plot-wise. After watching it a second time, I did kind of want to see a version that was focused on the crime just because the trail of clues and mystery trying to be solved, to me, is very intriguing. But that would have taken more time and I think it would have fit better in a different medium, maybe a video game or a book. But anyway, I'm getting carried away, so let's try and wrap this up. The big controversy of this film: Nicolas Cage. Was he cringy, creepy, or both? Like I said before, I am a huge Nick Cage fan and he holds a special place in my heart. No matter what movie he's in, which he's been in some great movies and some absolutely terrible ones, he gives it his all with his performances. Maybe this movie works better with a more reserved Hannibal Lecter type character, which is still intense, but I think Longlegs is intense in a different way. I don't think this movie works if he's not as animated as he was, and I appreciate how far he was willing to go. I don't necessarily think his portrayal in this movie is absolutely terrifying, but I do think it is absolutely disturbing. Like I said before, it's uncomfortable and made me want to crawl out of my skin, and that's what cringy originally meant. It's pure disgust. Now it is more associated with being awkward, but either way, it's an intense emotion. Nothing gets under your skin more than seeing something super cringy. So yes, Nick Cage can be cringy in this film. When he's yelling and singing in the car, I want him to stop, but he doesn't. You can't escape it because it's so in your face. So I don't think cringy is such a bad thing in this context, but again, I totally understand why people don't like that aspect. But overall, after watching it again, I like and appreciate this movie even more. Yes, I knew what to expect, so I wasn't as disturbed as the first time, but from start to finish, I still felt that same feeling of just wrong. Another critique I've seen, and one that I had a little bit, was it is confusing at parts. But there were so many things that I caught on the second watch that made it feel more complete. And there's stuff in the background that I didn't see the first time, which was really cool to notice now. And the movie actually felt a lot more fast-paced the second time around, and I didn't want it to end. To be honest, I was chasing the feeling from the first viewing. And I'm not trying to be all dark right now, I'm okay, trust me. But I'm kind of just going through the motions of life, and I needed an intense emotion, and this provided that. And I think that's why so many people are gravitating towards this film. It's a great break from the norm and the formulaic nature of movies in recent years. It's nice seeing something weird. We need weird off-kilter art. And there are some textbook horror moments, but not that many, honestly. And a lot of people think it's being weird and edgy just for the sake of being weird and edgy, but it could have been so much more if it really wanted to. It's a mix of twisted and campy, serious and ridiculous. It feels more inspired by classic horrors like A House of a Thousand Corpses or Psycho, probably because Norman Bates' son made the film. And this dynamic and ode to classic horror makes this film super fun. In my opinion, it's because of the ridiculousness, but it stays serious enough to make a compelling story. And honestly, I think the biggest problem with this movie is just the snobby nature of films like these. It is more on the side of an art house indie film, but with more palatable storytelling, which is important to future films like this. I do think it will change the landscape of horror. But when people say they don't like it, some of the ones who did are all like, you just don't get it, maybe stick to Marvel movies. And when people say they like it, some will say there's nothing to take away from this, it's just stupid. When honestly, this movie is not that deep. It's just fun and creepy horror. It's extremely well made in my opinion, with great cinematography. It's very unique in its visuals and disturbing aspects, some great acting, and even though it's inspired by other films, it's something I personally have never seen before. And for the first time, I love being a part of this collective consciousness with other fans that feel the same way. It seems like there's no middle ground with Longlegs. You either love it or you hate it. And especially after seeing it twice now, I can totally understand why someone wouldn't like it. I called it a masterpiece because it felt like a very well-made, unique experience. It literally pulled me back into the theater. Again, I don't get scared easily, but I've been on edge ever since I saw it. I keep looking over my shoulder, I feel like someone's watching, and I can't even have the lights off. For me, it's undeniable. That's why everyone is talking about it, even if they didn't like it. You can't deny how insane this is. I truly believe this movie is going to be looked at in the future as very impactful and possibly even a classic. If we can get more weirdness like this with a higher budget and great actors, there's going to be even better versions of these kind of films. Which, yes, there might already be, but I'm talking about in the mainstream. And I'm very excited to see what Oz Perkins has in store. Yes, I'm going to check out his other films and most likely talk about them on here. But yeah, man, I don't know what else to say. I still can't fully explain why I love Longlegs, but god damn it, I love it. I think everyone should go watch it, so hopefully you can have the same experience I did. And if not, it's just good to get people back in the theater. Love it or hate it, this is a great thing for horror.